SCP-149 is called blood flies, and judging from the thumbnail, it kind of looks like mosquitoes. Back home where I grew up at, y'all, there's a lot of mosquitoes. Some people used to say they were really big, but in general, in South Louisiana, there's a lot, especially in the summer months. But where I grew up at, they were so bad that in some places with standing water, you could literally hear the fields hum. It's a very, very unnerving feeling. I really don't like mosquitoes. First of all, when they bite you, it sucks, you itch and stuff, but in situations like that, it almost seems deadly. I remember cutting grass as a kid and running into some big piles of mosquitoes and like freaking the heck out because they were just all over me, man. It's, I don't know, I hope this doesn't freak me out too bad. Anyway, this is my Detective Boyd, you guys. Let's get into this reaction.
Greetings, my like-minded friends.
Hello,
An interesting
Detective
but
Boyd.
troubling thing happened to me recently. I want to share data about SCP-149.
Look, there's one
and
right
tell
there.
you why I'm interested in this object.
Smack it!
Detective Void is my pseudonym, of course, but
Sure.
I used to actually be a detective. I
Alright.
retired to focus on studying the SCP Foundation.
You need a
Imagine
tie
my
pin
surprise
for
when
that
a
stain
commission
on your
came to
shirt
my
too,
old
brother.
email from a previous life, so to speak.
Okay.
I wouldn't have even paid it any mind if it weren't for one very important detail.
Which?
The letter was addressed to Detective Void. I admit
Look
that
at the way it was
client
spelled,
intrigued me,
too.
So at my own risk, I agreed to a meeting. Thus
Okay.
began the SCP-149 case.
I
The
see.
object is also called the Blood Flies.
Uh-huh.
It belongs to the Keter class and is capable of
Oh, it's
destroying
Keter.
all of humanity.
God!
Several specimens of this species are kept in a Foundation zone, in a special plexiglass
So
container.
it's very,
It's
very,
completely
very
sealed
bad.
except for the safe oxygen supply system.
Okay.
Air combined with a mist of nutrients
So it
is
needs
supplied to
oxygen?
the chamber every 2 hours. By all accounts,
so they keep 'em fed and
SCP-149
everything.
specimens are common mosquitoes, except
Right.
they can carry a
Uh-huh.
novelist strain of retrovirus. The Foundation
That's
calls it SCP-149-A. Retroviruses are pathogens that modify the cells of infected living organisms, causing the
no.
cells to produce more of their own kind. HIV is the most
Wow.
well-known of these sorts
Right,
of viruses.
right.
Now imagine that it's
Very
also a
scary.
disease caused by an anomalous agent. My client who
Like
sent
a
the letter
mosquito,
turned out to be a
too.
man
That's
with obvious signs
scary,
of insomnia,
man.
paranoia, and other mental
Malaria is a
disorders.
big
He claimed
deal,
that he was abducted by a
but
secret
it's not
organization
as
for
common.
strange experiments,
Well, this is
and
pretty
that his
uncommon,
memory
too.
was wiped afterwards.
Okay.
Among other things, he recalled the horrors in his dreams of the killer mosquitoes that had infested the
Look at those
entire
eyes.
planet. He wanted me to find evidence for this abduction theory of
Wow.
his. So why exactly did I take it upon myself to investigate this case?
I
First,
mean-
in addition to paranoia, the man had some interesting materials. He brought me a flash drive
oh.
with secret data from the Foundation. Do you
The
remember
color
what a
made it
flash
look
drive
like-
is? Second, he was
Yes,
definitely a
yes.
Foundation employee, or still is one.
Okay.
I'm a pretty good conspiracy theorist, but this guy found me somehow.
Right.
After he showed up, the most logical thing to do would have been to lay low, but that's not my style. And
Okay.
third, he was interested in an SCP object that I didn't know anything about at the time. Among his data were mostly technical papers about containment areas and other uninformative stuff.
Sure.
There was so much information that I almost gave up digging through it all,
What's
until
on
I
your
accidentally
coffee?
found the personal diaries of Foundation
maybe it's
employees
just dirt?
and some test reports. Among other things, there turned out to be information concerning SCP-149.
Okay.
These were the exact killer mosquitoes that my client had been talking
Uh-huh.
about. The retrovirus named SCP-149-A is found in the saliva of mosquitoes.
Yeah.
There's a 50% chance of contracting when bitten.
50%.
If the pathogen enters the bloodstream, it
So if
infects the
one
human
bites
cells
you,
responsible for
it's
regeneration.
quite possible
Through a
that
number
you
of
get it.
mechanisms, both chemical and anomalous,
sucks.
the virus acts on the cell's nucleus, altering the DNA. Just a few hours after infection, growths similar to cysts appear on the outer walls of the esophagus, as well as
Wow.
inside the sinuses. SCP-149 larvae develop inside them. By the time the body's immune processes begin,
Can you
the first
imagine?
brood of mosquitoes has had enough time to fully develop.
Mosquito
They
larvae
exit the
in
body
your
through natural
sinuses.
openings, like the nostrils,
Oh!
and sometimes even use the
Gosh.
sinuses to fly out through the eyes.
Ah!
There's no way to stop an SCP-149
no.
infection. A fatal outcome always awaits the infected person.
Like, I
In the
just
Foundation's
felt
database,
it, guys.
I found data on an incident known as 149-1. At the time, the mosquitoes breached containment and infected several D-Class employees
my
at once
gosh,
with the
poor
retrovirus.
D-classes.
Most of them weren't isolated at the time, and 5 hours later, a swarm of SCP-149 specimens flew out of the victims. The subsequent infestations were so numerous that one of the Foundation's doctors was forced to seal part of the zone off hermetically.
They can make a movie about this, y'all.
SCP-149 remained on sublevels 12 to 15. It was impossible to evacuate healthy employees.
Oh, yeah.
Such harsh measures helped to avoid contamination of the entire area, and probably an XK class scenario, too. This classification refers to the complete or partial extinction of humanity due to a Keter object.
Can you
Incident 149-1 led to the development of Protocol 42 Charlie. It was personally approved by Member 12 of the O5 Council. The protocol must be initiated every time someone's infected with SCP-149.
You know, typically you can't even see a mosquito coming.
I didn't manage to get my hands on the documents regarding 42 Charlie, but I presume that this action plan makes the ethics committee want to tear their hair out.
That's scary,
After studying SCP-149, I started to wonder who my client was. He claimed that experiments were conducted on him, which, in the Foundation, only happens with D-Class employees. The man couldn't be one of them, because D-Class are recruited from prisoners, and they're not exactly released into the wild, so to speak.
Well, he could
Given
be
the
a clone,
information on the client's flash drive, he had definitely worked at the Foundation, and had at least a level 2 security clearance.
So why were you
also aware of
experimented on?
SCP-149. Based on this, I started digging around in the archives.
Okay.
SCP Foundation personnel photos are rarely attached to their files.
Right.
So I can't say this with the utmost certainty, but my client is likely Dr. Timothy Burns. He was an on-site medical staff member at the Foundation with level 2 security clearance. They called him Doc Burns, which is even mentioned in his file. The expert graduated medical school with honors, but had a dubious reputation. During his time as a student, he supposedly stole bodies from the local morgue, after which they were found all over the building in various poses. It's known that the Foundation became interested in Burns because he helped capture one of the SCP objects. It remains unknown what kind of object it was, but they say that Doc beat it with a surgical tray. The medic accused the creature of stealing his lunch. The man explained the beating with the words, "The little bastard had to pay."
Oh my!
Burns was hired to work at the Foundation. For a long time, he was listed in the medical department of Zone 19, and the doctor also acted as an auxiliary employee. He was regularly sent with agents to places where new objects were discovered in order to place them in containment. Service at the SCP Foundation didn't particularly change the scientist's character. A number of disciplinary reprimands were issued to him. They tried to get him to stop storing his food in the morgue. But Doc said in response that it's so much colder there. That is, colder than it was in the ordinary kitchen fridge in the break room. Burns also received multiple reprimands for using D-Class employees in an inappropriate manner. The doctor, in turn, didn't see what was wrong with his behavior, and he claimed that D-Class employees made excellent footstools.
Oh
Doc was known to have been involved in the initial maintenance of SCP objects numbers 221, 783, and 1450. He worked with SCP-137 in collaboration with Dr. Mann, but most importantly, he was involved with SCP-149. The last time a disciplinary report was filed against Burns, he had come to work under the influence of an unknown substance. It was assumed to be alcohol or some other natural compound.
He was sipping on the job.
Suggested that he could have used narcotic substances.
The
scientist started to get rowdy, and he got very upset when he could only name 46 digits of the number pi. They tried to send the doctor home, but he smeared his face with chocolate cake and shouted, with obscenities, that he was Rick James. For those who don't know, he's a famous Black American singer and songwriter.
We know who Rick James
got carried away with drugs and died in 2000.
What the heck?
The official punishment for Burns' escapade was his demotion, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just treated the scientist with amnestics and turned him loose in the world. About 10 years have gone by since the drafting of this protocol. With that much time having passed, intrusive memories of his work could have emerged. He most likely witnessed Incident 149-1.
And
the scientist understood that a breach of the Bloodfly's containment could lead to a global-scale contagion.
And
now, this memory is coming back to him in his nightmares.
Why he is still trying to work on this.
SCP-149 itself is not really all that fantastic. Similar reproduction mechanisms are found in several known species of parasites. They use their hosts' bodies for nutrition and reproduction. For example, there are ticks, or trombiculidae, who go through 4 stages of development from egg to adult. And by the way, they look bloody too.
They are
These critters
nasty.
even infect toads, turtles, quails, and of course people.
But you know what? They don't fly.
That feed on the cells of their prey. Once on the skin, they release a digestive enzyme that dissolves the cells into a nutritious soup. The parasite crawls under the skin, eats it, and lives under it.
They are
severe
nasty.
Itching, swelling, redness, and
ticks
rashes.
are bad news.
The difference in the reproduction of ticks and that of SCP-149 is that upon having eaten enough to transform into an adult, the trombiculidae larvae falls to the ground. There, it turns into a pupa, from which an adult tick appears subsequently.
They don't turn the host into a tick
eggs directly
breeder, though.
Blood, but a virus instead. It's quite possible that the blood flies were created by humans during experiments with anomalous subjects. The object could have been developed as a way to destroy humanity. Mosquitoes remain the cause for the largest numbers of death, as they carry a multitude of difficult-to-treat diseases.
They are nasty, man.
As for my client, the man was probably a Foundation employee and was treated with amnestics after his dismissal.
Sure.
But this doesn't explain how he found me.
Hey, life's
I've long
good.
suspected that I'm closely being surveilled by Foundation agents. They may have well used a former employee to lure me out.
Be careful.
But that still leaves the question, why didn't the operations take any
Foundation
action when I met with my client?
detective.
In any case, an ordinary person couldn't get the data that Doc brought me on the flash drive.
Right.
And no civilian would be able to figure out my email address, that's for sure.
Okay.
I'll have to think about this later. But for now, let's get back to SCP-149.
All right.
This object seems
He did
ordinary,
kind of show
but
it
to
to
me,
us earlier,
it's
huh?
pretty
Or
creepy.
maybe it was only
The
part
blood
of
flies
it.
are small and quite terrestrial, but they will easily kill you. But
Very,
before that
very
happens,
bad.
their victim will become an incubator for an entire army of
That
new
is
SCPs.
nasty, man.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate SCP-149's creepiness?
This-
Share your thoughts in the comments down below.
I can't even imagine what it would feel like to have eggs of a creature or insect growing in your sinus. My sinuses is bad enough, y'all. This is creepy, man. I still remember, like, swatting tons of them in certain points of my life. Just the thought that even one of those bites could have been a blood fly. If something like this would happen, it would just be so catastrophic, y'all. Detective Boyd, make sure to subscribe to him, guys, as well as a couple other videos that I reacted to. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off. We'll see you next time.